day, students! How are you? I am Teacher Irish. For today's discussion, we will be talking about the history of the Philippine educational system during the Spanish era. Yes, you heard it right. Now let's begin. The Spanish colonial began in 1521 when Ferdinand Magellan came to Ireland and claimed it as a colony of Spanish Empire. During the Spanish colonization, the educational system was controlled by the friars. The missionaries took charge in teaching, controlling, and maintaining the rules and regulations imposed to the students. Those missionaries emphasized the teaching of the Catholic religion. The school was focused on the Christian doctrines. There was separated schools for boys and girls during this period. During the early years of the Spanish colonization, education was mostly religion-oriented, controlled by the Roman Catholic Church. The Spanish friars and missionaries educated the natives upon the arrival. Their main goal were to go over the islands and obtain a foothold in the spice stream and converted indigenous population to the Catholic faith. Third, the oldest universities, colleges, professional schools in the first modern public and professional system in Asia were created during the colonial period. The oldest universities, colleges, and professional schools in the Philippines, or the first public and professional system in Asia, were created during the colonial period. And fourth, the education degree of 1863 was divided into two parts. First, establishment of at least 2 to 3 primary schools, one for boys and one for girls. And lastly, in each town, under the control of bonzes. And second, the patient of love was called to train men as teachers, supervised by the Jesuits. The teaching of Spanish was compulsory and to better understand during the Spanish. Let's watch and share the commentary about it.
Oriental spices were easily sold at European markets at big profits. King Charles decided to send an expedition to the Moluccas. His purpose was primarily commercial. Then here is Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese that went to Spain to offer his services to the king. He said to the king that he could reach the Moluccas, then known as the Spice Islands. September 20th, 1519, when the expedition left the port and sailed southward across the Atlantic. Magellan continued his voyage, and on March 16, 1521, he sighted the mountain of what is now Samar. March 31st, when they held the first Mass celebrated by Father Pedro de Valderrama, they planted a large cross on top of a hill overlooking the sea, then took the possession of the islands in the name of King Charles and called it the Archipelago of St. Lazarus. March 15, when they held a Mass in Cebu where their chieftain Raha Humabon and his wife Juana have been baptized. They were the first Catholics. Over the next several decades, other Spanish expeditions were set off to the islands. Spanish missionaries played a major role as to how Filipinos were educated and controlled. Religion was the tool that Spain wielded to make the Philippines its colony. The first Christian school was built and established in Cebu year 1565 by the Augustinians. The schools were separated for boys and girls. and only the wealthy Filipinos were accommodated. According to King Philip II's Law of the Indies, Leyes de Indias, Spanish authorities were mandated to educate the natives to learn how to read and write and to learn Spanish. Jesuits established the Colegio de San Ignacio and is now the Universidad de San Ignacio, the first college school for boys in Manila in 1518. It was 1589 when the government entrusted the Escuela Pia, now the Ateneo de Manila University, to the Jesuits. Established Colegio de San Ildefonso in Cebu year 1595 and is now the University of San Carlos. Colegio de San Jose was established in the early 1600s by the friars. In 1610, the first Filipino author, Tomas Pinpin, published a book in baybayin entitled Librong Pag-aaralan ng mga Tagalog ng Wikang Kastila. The Dominicans also claimed the reputation as they established in 1611 the University of Santo Tomas, around 1630 when San Juan de Letran was built for orphan boys. They took some time to establish college school for girls. Colegio de Santa Potenciana that was built in 1589 was the first, followed by the Colegio de Santa Isabel in 1632 that instituted Beaterio or nunnery. The sole purpose of the school is to provide education for the orphan girls. The lessons are also about household chores such as cooking, embroidery making, sewing, and other that are necessary for good housekeeping. Public school was built in 1863 with the passage of Education Reform Act due to the compulsory education. Separate school for boys and girls were established in every pueblo. Friars owned different schools in the country ranging from the primary to the tertiary level. Ever since the Spanish colonial government adopted the program of compulsory education in 1863, the education became free to all children between the ages 7 to 13 years old. Although they have implemented that system of education, there was still an inequality in attaining it. Curriculum then was a lot more structured compared to what the Filipinos had before the Spaniards came. The curriculum consists of Christian doctrine, values, reading and writing in Spanish, etiquette, and Spanish history, because the aim of education is to promote Christianity, Spanish language, and imposition of Spanish culture. People were also taught that social mobility was achieved through education, and this manifested in social inequality and female subordination. The higher priority on education was placed on men, and says that women should just stay only at home.
So for the summarization of today's discussion, the education in the Spanish period, I would describe it as number one, education was religion-centered. So why is that religion-centered? Because they were teaching Christian doctrines, good manners, and a little bit of their native language. So I believe that the religion or the Spaniards have greatly influenced the Filipino not only on education but as well as on their cultures. Okay, we Filipinos, okay, influenced by the Spaniards. So second one is the education is for elite only. So why is that for elite only? Just like what I've said a while ago, the one who has the privilege to go to schools was the one who had a wealth and a power to go to schools, especially those who are Spanish blood. They have more privilege than Filipinos before. So number three is that Spanish is compulsory, or it is according to law. It is mandatory. According to Educational Decree of 1863, one should establish schools for boys and girls. So Spanish teaching was mandatory during this time because in this period we are being colonized by the Spanish, and this is where the education related to, or manipulated to become a religion centered. So the fourth one is that boys and girls are separated in schools during this period. So why is that? Because I think during this because I believe rather that before the people or the humans before are very conservative, and there has a discrimination of gender before, like if you were a woman or a girl, you can't do this. You are only built, or you are only born to work inside the house. And if you are a boy, then you have all the privileges that you could imagine. So I think that's the reason why during this period the girls and boys are separated. And lastly, it is inadequate. I noticed that their teachings has deficiency because I believe that their curriculum that time was not that improved and advanced for a student to learn to. It is suppressed wherein it defeat and concur, because I believe that during this period their teachings were not timely and relevant topics, such as just like Christian doctrines and whatsoever, because nowadays Christian doctrines was only taught during elementary, I think, because during the Spanish era, diba, they invade from preschool to tertiary. But nowadays I think not all of the schools teach some Christian doctrines and whatsoever. So this was defeated as time passes by. And last is control. So during this period, the Spanish were the one who controls most of the schools and the curriculum during this era. So that's all for today. I hope you learned something from me. Let me know if you learned something. See you guys next discussion. Have a good day. Bye.